Hello and welcome to another lesson in our VBA programming language. And in this lesson, we're going to see how we can determine the last row with data in our database and collect the data from the form straight to our database without any problem, without any stress. In our previous lessons, we tried to look at several approaches by which we can collect data from our user form straight to the database. Okay, but in this lesson, we're not going to suffer again. We're not going to write any complex code. So this means just single line of code, just to write a single line of code to collect the data from the form straight to the database. The line of code is going to determine the last empty row in our database and quickly collect the data from the form and paste straight into the empty row without data. It's going to be simple, easy, and fun. So let's quickly delve right into that. But before we do that, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Press the bell icon so that you can receive notifications anytime we upload new tutorials. We try as much as possible to upload tutorials every single day or twice in a week. It's going to be fun and easy. Let's quickly delve right into the lesson. Hello and welcome to another lesson in our VBA training, and in this lesson we'll be looking at how to identify the last row without data and store our data without having to use the loop and offset method as we used in our previous video. If you like, you can use it. I'm just giving you different scenarios. Whichever presents itself, go ahead and use it. Good. So in our previous lesson, you noticed that we use the loop and offsets to be able to store our data. So here we're going to provide another alternative to do that. And this alternative is very simple. What we are going to do is to just write a line of code to just locate the last row with data and then add one to it to get the empty row, the next empty row, and then pour or save, store our data over there. So that is what we're going to do. So let's just open our folder. Let's press Ctrl on the keyboard, drag over the project 2, then you rename the copy of it to a project 3. Okay. Good. So you call this 3. Just press the enter key twice to open it. Perfect. So you can enable content. Then Alt F11 to open the code editor. So don't worry. We'll be clearing all this and then write everything from scratch. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. So now, first thing first, let's see how we can check the entire row in a workbook or on a worksheet. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use an immediate window. So Control G, use the question sign, question mark, or whatever. Let me say rows dot count. If you press enter, it will return the total number of rows we have on a worksheet. That is what 1,048,576. Right, good. Now, the next thing we're going to do is this. We're going to look at how we can just check on our data sheet here, how we can select the last row. So to do that, we're going to just create a subroutine here to do that. So it's a sub. You can call it row tests. Okay, so perfect. So just one line of code, and then it will select the last row we have here. Okay, so to do that, we say what? Sheet 2. Which one is the sheet 2? We're talking of the data sheet. That is the sheet 2. This one is the sheet 1. Okay, dot range. Tab it over into brackets. Which of the range talking about? The first range, that is column A. Okay, so we say A. Then we're going to concatenate it to what? The rows count, the counting of the number of rows. So we say rows dot count, then into brackets. So we wanted that the moment we run this line, it should just locate the last row for us and then select it. So we say what? Sheet 2. That's going to happen on sheet 2. And dot range, which of the range? The first column. Just the first column. That is why we just use A. We're talking of this one. If you want it, or if you want it to happen on this one, we're going to use B. Okay, so say what? Rows.count means count the rows for us. and then get as the last row and select it. So dot select. If we should run this on this particular worksheet, it should return, or we're just going to return and get as the last row. So let's run it and see. So this is the last row, okay, as we saw previously in the immediate window, the same we're seeing here. Good. Now let's see how we can quickly check the last row with our with data on our sheet here. Okay, this one here, this one, the last row with data. So let me clear this one here, clear this one too here. Good. So let me just check here. Perfect. So to do that, we're going to say that we are going to use the same subroutine. Okay, so we say what sheet 2 is going to happen on sheet 2. So sheet 2 dot range column A and rows dot count into bracket dot Excel end up. You call that Excel, or maybe dot end into bracket Excel app or something like that. Okay, let me just complete it here. Perfect. Now what this line of code is doing is this dots. Let me just explain it for you. Okay, tab it over. Now what we are saying is this: we want to start checking from the bottom to the top, or sorry, from the top to the bottom. Quickly locate the row, the last row with data. The last row, you can see all these ones are holding data. Okay, the last row with what? Data, and just select that row for us. Okay, so with this, when we run this line of code, we expect this one to be selected. Okay, expect this one to be selected. That is Rahman Rashida. So let's run this and see. Perfect. So this is the last row with data. So that is that. Now to make things simple, to just get the last row without data, what we can do is just to add 1 here plus 1, and then we get the last row without data. So to do that, now we don't even let's just start writing our codes from scratch so that we can understand that better. Okay, so let's clear everything here. Now we now know how to select the last row, or how to find the entire the number of rows on a worksheet, and then how to also clear this. And then here we think we should leave this dot clear content stuffs here, right? I think we can leave them for now. Okay, since we want to write everything from scratch, let's just clear them and then we write, so that we don't get anyone confused here. Okay, so to do that, now first of all, let's say we now know how to check the entire number of rows on the worksheet, and how to check the sheet, what's the name, the last sheet, or the last row with data. Okay, so we now know that. So let's have this in mind because we'll be using it here. First of all, we need to declare our variables, okay, like the customer name and blah blah blah. I didn't want us to do, I would have just copied the codes and paste so that we edit it, but some might get it in a different way. So I think we have to write it from scratch. It doesn't matter. I don't get tired of doing that, since if only that is what will help some of us to understand it better, we just have to do that. Okay, so it's a customer row or cust name. So mean customer name as what? As string. Okay, and what I'm doing right now, there's no way that I don't have any doubts that you know what I'm doing. You know what is happening here. We're just declaring what variables. Okay, so you can comment, say variables declaration. Okay, so to do this, next one is what we're going to deem the, as in, let's check here, that is the transaction date. Okay, so deem, we call it trust date or something like that. Trust date as also what date, since it's a date, the data type is what? Date. So tab it over. Then the next one, amount. Okay, we call it trust amount. Okay, so it's a deem trust, sorry, amount as currency, since it's money, sika. So perfect. Then the payer's name. Okay, the payer's name, if I'm right. So you say deem deem, how did we spell it? If I can remember, PYS, payer's name. All these variables we are declaring here, if we just misspell one of them, it will give us error. So we shouldn't worry. We'll see how it's going to be. Player's name as also is a string. Okay, player's name is going to be a string. Perfect. Now the next one we have the player's contact. Okay, so say dim pys contact as also string because it's going to be. Now we are going to add another variable here, which is what the new row we shall be using. Now the next row or the next empty row will be what's the name? Storing our data. We need to declare it before we can use it. Okay, we need to declare it so that the computer can locate a memory for it, so that whenever we call it, we know but the computer knows what we are talking about. It can just leave us to use it the way we want. Okay, so we say dim. We can call it let's call it, let's say new row. Okay, new row as long. Long here is also what? Just an integer. Okay, like a number. As the numbers you just saw, the total number of what? Rows in a workbook, okay, or on a worksheet. That number you saw, that 1,048,507 or whatever, is a long. Okay, it's just a number. Okay, long can be positive or negative, and in this case we are dealing with what? Positive numbers. All the rows are numbered what? Positively, so we use it as long. Okay, so that is that. Long is also another data type, so that is that. Now after this we need to assign values to our variables. Okay, in our previous lessons we kept mentioning sheet one dot range or sheet, and then refer to form and all that. Now there is a way we can summarize all that. Okay, we're going to use the with keyword. So we say with what? Sheets. When we do this, it will reduce the stress for us to be, let's say, calling the name of the sheet and then referring to the form over and over again in this, which will reduce all that. So we say sheet and then we say end with. Let me just finish that and then explain that to you. Okay, perfect. What we are saying is this: now that we just mentioned with sheet, what we are talking about is that, sorry, with sheets, with S. With sheets, we have a lot of sheets in the workbook. So which of the sheet are we talking about? The form. We want to do something with it. So end with. Anytime you start with, you end with. Okay, so that is that. Anytime you start loop, you end with loop. You start with sub, you end sub. So that is how it is. We're going to see starting and ending. So that is the termination. That's that. Perfect. Now, with this, we wouldn't be mentioning sheet into bracket form, then dot range. No, it's that stress is gone. So with this, it means you're able to capture. Now the computer knows the sheet you're talking about. Which one? The form. So that is that. What we want to do, we want to assign variables to what? Values to what? Our variables. Okay, so we say cast. Let me just copy this. That is a customer name, so Control C to copy it. Control V to paste it. Customer name is equal to what? Dot range. Which of the range? Into brackets. The range here talking about the customer name is coming from a C name, right? So we'll say C name dot value, the value that is coming from there. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. Now the next one we have the transaction date. So let's copy this. Okay, now why don't we just make it simple? Control C to copy all this and then Control V to paste. We have it like 5 or 6. Okay, Control V to paste away 4, 5. Okay, so this is going to be transaction. Control C to copy after selecting. Control V to paste. Now we come in and edit. We have it want to be a T date, meaning transaction date. So you can select this. Control C to select it, and then Control V to paste it here. So we come here, Control C to copy transaction amounts. Then we edit this. Control V to paste is equal to dot range. From this, the range is what? Amount. Control C to copy amount. Just and Control V to paste. That is transaction T amount. Then we talk of player's name. Okay, Control C to copy, Control V to paste it here, and then we come to that here. The range is what? P name. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Now the last one we talk of player's contact. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Then we come to the player's contact range is P contact. Control C to copy, and then finally Control V to paste. So now we are done assigning values to our variable. So whatever that we enter is going to be what stored in this particular variable. So now we want to determine the last row with data and then add one to it to get to the next row without data. So how do we do that? So we say what? We now call our new row. We are going to name that as new row. That is why we declare it. So whenever we call new row, imagine we didn't declare this dim new row as long. Now, if I come here and say new row, the computer doesn't know anything about that. It doesn't know at all. So take note of that. Now, with declaration at the top, I can use it the way I want. Okay, so with that, so new row. Which one is the new row? We are going to assign value to the new row. Which value is it going to be? So it's a sheet. I'll explain that. Okay, sheet into bracket. Which of the sheet? The data sheet here. So we call that data into brackets, then dot range. Which of the range? We're talking of the first column here, so we say what? Into brackets A, then we say, then we call it, and then there's a end rows. Now I want to count the number of rows dot, so we say rows dot, dot count, and into brackets, then dot end, and another bracket open. Then we call the Excel app, so it's an Excel app, close the brackets, dot, I'll explain that, row plus, that is 1. Now what we are saying is this. Let me just do this perfectly. Let's press enter. Go. There's no error. Good. Now the new row, which we've already declared. So now whenever we call it here, the computer has no problem because it's aware of it here. So we say sheet. Which of the sheet? The sheet called data. Range. Which of the range? The first range. That is the A. And sorry, I'm concatenating it to what? Rows count. You want to count the rows as you saw previously. Okay. You want to count all the rows. Excellent. Now we want to count from the top to the down dot rows. Then when we get to the row with data, we want to add 1 to it. Now when we get to the row with data, let's say we get to this row, okay, which is 14. When we add 1 to 14, we're going to get to what? 15, which is what? The next row without data. So perfect. That is that. That is what we're talking about. So we just added 1 to that. I pray you understand. What I'm saying is, let me repeat it. Say new row. We've already declared, okay? I mean the next empty row without data. So where do we want it? We want it from the sheet. Which of the sheet? The name of the sheet is what? Data. Okay, which range? The first column, that is A. Concatenate it to what? Rows of count function. The rows of count function returns what? The number of rows we have. But an Excel app. So which means start from the top, coming to the bottom, come to the last row with what? Data, and then you add 1 to it. That's right. So now let's assume that we have data in row 15. When it gets to row 15, it will add 1 to it, then we get to what? 16 without data. So that is how it works. Okay, so now we are done with that. Now we want to write to the empty row on our data sheet. So we say that. So now that we are able to get the empty row, we begin writing to it. Okay. So to do that, we say, let me just say with what? With sheet. Which of the sheet? That is the data sheet. We want to do something. What we want to do, we want to write to the various cells here. That is, we want to pour our data in here. Okay. With that, so anytime you start with, you do what? You end with. Don't forget. So say end with. Perfect. So we want to do something here with sheet, without sheet, data sheet. We want to do something. So dot cells. Now we are referring to the what? Various cells on that particular new row that is selected. Okay, the various cells. Talking of the various cells. Okay, this one, that. Talking about that. Perfect. Dot cells of that what? New row into bracket new row. See that we are just mentioning the new row and there's nothing happening, but the computer is aware of it, right? 1 new row in the first column. Sorry. Yeah, that is a new row in the first column. That is a column 1. Okay, so that is that. Into bracket dot value equal to customer name. So we say cast name. Have you seen it? Now what we are saying is that with a sheet called data dot cells, the various cells on that new row, the first column, this is it. This is the empty one, the first column. the value that we are writing to it, so dot value, then we are assigning something to which is what? Cast name, which is customer name. We've already assigned customer name into what is coming from here. You are already aware of this. By now, I think you have understood the concept. Okay, I pray so. So that is that we just assign that to the first cell here. Now, out of the second cell and third cell and fourth cell and fifth cell, is second, third, fourth, fifth. What's going to happen? We're going to be taking it from here. It's coming from what? Transaction date, which is here. Transaction amount, which is here. Payer's name, which is here, and then payer's contact, right? So we just copy this line of code and then paste it. Control C to copy, sorry. Control V to paste, Control V to paste, Control V to paste. We have Control V to paste. Perfect. Now here it's going to be second column, that is column 2. Where are we? What are we taking? We're taking off. We are taking what? That's transaction date. Okay, so we just take transaction date. So we call that here. Just select it. Control C to copy. Then Control V to paste. Now the third column from here. This we are taking what? Amount. So you can edit this to what? 3. The column 3. Then we copy this. Control C to copy, and then we come here and Control V to paste. Now the fourth one, we edit this to 4. Then we come here, paste name, Control C to copy, and then here, Control V to paste. Now we move on to the last one, and the fifth column, that's this one. So we copy this, paste, contact, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste. Now we've just written to that. Now, after that, after we've written to it, we want to activate what? The sheet 1, that is after submission of this data. We don't want to go here. Okay, we want to remain there. We want to remain here. So we say what? You know what I'm going to do, right? You can guess. Say what? Sheet 1 dot activate. We say sheet 1 dot activate. Perfect. Tab it over. Now after that, we need our information here. That is the last execution status, blah 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 blah. Let's assume it's not there, so we just clear it. So now we need to write it. So we say what? That same sheet 1 dot range, okay, dot range, which of the range into bracket, that is C17, right? It's going to be here, C17. There's it. So Control C to copy it. If you like, and just type it. So same. Control V to, sorry, Control V to paste it, and then C17 dots. What do you think we're going to do? So the value, sorry, type it over. What's the value? It's called to what? Then it's going to be a string. So we introduce an inverted comma. So last execution info. So the last execution information column, and then we have, then we say what? Data success message submitted successfully. Okay, exclamation sign here. Then I'm going to concatenate it to what? The now function. So we say then this will return the current date and time. Perfect. Now when we are done with that, now the last thing we need to do is we need to clear the various cells. Okay, that is that. We need to clear the various cells. But before we even do that, let's try running our macro and see. Let's enter here. Ali Yaya. Transaction date is what? 13th 10 2020. Amount is what? 2,000, whatever. Payer's name is Razak. Okay, payer's contact is this. Let's pray. There's no error. Let's run this. Perfect. Let's check on our data sheet. So we have it perfectly displayed there without any problem, without any stress. So that is how we can use. This is another method without using the loop. Okay, so that is how things work. So maybe you can, someone, you've gone for a source code, and then you've gone for a project. Then with your little knowledge in programming or in VBA, that's VBA project, right? You want to edit the source code. And then what you know is that we always have to use loop to look for empty rows and then store our data. You don't know that there are other alternatives. Even with this, there are more. Okay, so that is that. We always try to present different examples so that whichever that comes your way, you can easily use it without a problem, without any stress. So now you can see that everything is still in the cells, but we don't want it. We want to clear the various cells. So I think you can do that. Let me just leave it for you, right? By now you should be able to write that. It'll be a very simple thing. Okay, so we say what? Sheet 1 again. Sorry. Sheet 1 dot range into brackets. Now, which one are we starting with? We're starting with customer name. So it's a C name. Control C to copy it, dot range. And we have this. Control Z, V to paste, and then into bracket dot. Sorry, dot. It's clear. Content, perfect. So now, when we run this, it will display and then clear the first one. We want to clear the rest, so we just copy this. Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste 2, Control V to paste 3, 4, 5. So now we go for the second range. It's what? Feed it, copy it, then this kind of paste it. So third range, T amount, copy it, then paste it, and then we come to the fourth range, P name, paste name, paste it, and then the last range, copy it, and then paste it. So now, if we should, let me just add another name. Yes. If I should run this, it should clear all them for us. So perfect. Everything is now working. So let's go to our data sheet and check. Confirm that. So the last one I just submitted is here. Let's see, it's updated, right? Perfect. So now everything is working. So that is how we use the rows count function to determine the last row on the sheet and then store our data. In most cases, we normally use this one. Okay, when we get to the VBA object where we will be using the text boxes and then the buttons, this is the one we'll be using there. So you just have to take note of that. So please keep practicing, practice makes man perfect. You know all this, so you don't practice, you can't get it. That is the fact. So thank you very much for watching. For our next lesson, I say thank you very much and bye for now.